Cool. Okay, welcome back everyone. And I've got a special guest today. I'm with the Lightworker Lady and Intel Lady. And I'm pretty good much going to give her the floor for most of today's show so she can share with us some experiences she had with the realms of extraterrestrials, which is something I'm extraordinarily fascinated in. So, if you could tell us about what pages you control and what you do over there, so some of my audience could come and check you out.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. So as you said, I have a YouTube channel called Lightworker Lady, and more recently, I've set up a different YouTube channel called Intel Lady for reasons that I will try to explain as fully as possible. Certainly hadn't intended to do it, but it just sort of happened accidentally. But so about it's coming up 6 years now, with me being on YouTube. I'm just a little channel, like Worker Lady, compared to most, and I set it up primarily because people asked me if I could do weekly card readings, and I thought, well, okay, yeah, fair enough, I'll do that. Wasn't expecting anything big from it at all, and then over time, the channel just evolved and changed and became less about reading oracle cards and more about talking about spiritual matters and spiritual development and and everything that encompasses. So it was almost like I was video documenting my spiritual journey as well, because I think I don't trust anybody who says, that they know everything, and gurus that claim to, or people who call themselves gurus that claim to know everything. I don't think that's our purpose. I think
Yeah,
everything on our journey is we're here to learn. We're here to learn from other people, and I don't just mean learning from spiritual people. I mean learning from absolutely everybody we come into contact with, including all those wonderful cynical people that will question everything, and so they should. So, uh, as the channel has gone on, it has definitely evolved. And I, if you hear a tinkle tinkle noise, by the way, it's people coming to my
wind
door to post things.
wind chimes, is it?
No, it's not. It's my doorbell.
Oh,
I, so yeah, just ignore that.
no.
So yeah, I decided, as there were so many different subject matters that I covered on my channel, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to set up different playlists to separate things off a little bit so everything doesn't come jumbled up. And then 2016, I started writing a lot of I love creative writing, always have. And I started writing guided meditations, and I run a little group every Friday, a development group, where I take people through guided meditations. And somebody said, why don't you actually put those guided meditations up on your channel for people to enjoy? And I thought, yeah, I'll do that. So I started writing and writing and writing more and more and more, and I put quite a few up on my channel. And that went down really, really well. And at the time that I was writing more, I was looking into more different spiritual pursuits. And I don't know, I stumbled across one day somebody who I went to a mind, body, spirit. I do that a lot. I go to mind, body, spirit events and come home with bagfuls of crystals and, and all sorts, and chatting to like-minded people. And one particular one I went to, there was this couple who had set up it must have been a 10 or 12-foot copper meditation pyramid. I'd never seen one of these before, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. I had my son with me, and the gentleman said, would he like to come and sit in the pyramid? And I said, do you want to sit? And he said, okay. And he sat and just sat for a while, and he was so calm. And he came out, he said, that felt really nice. That felt really good. And he picked up quite a lot about my son without me saying anything to him. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And I said, "Oh, I think I need to get one of these." And he said, "Well, I said, I don't think I'd fit one that size into my house." And he said, "Well, they do come smaller than that. I make them." And somehow I lost his number, which annoyed me. And then I thought I was on a mission then. I was like, I want a copper pyramid to meditate in. And I eventually found one. Unfortunately, it was on eBay. I was like, "Oh no, do I really have to go to eBay?" But I found one, and it was made in India, and it was very affordable. And I thought, okay, let's go for it. Set it up in my workroom, and then started doing my development groups with everyone sitting around the pyramid. I would meditate inside the pyramid, and I found a whole new world sort of opened up to me. This was, I think, 2017, when it was either late 2016 when I bought the pyramid, or very early 2017, but I'm pretty certain it was late 2016 when I got it. And then all sorts of interesting things started to happen in the year that was 2017. I thought 2016 was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then things completely changed in 2017, where I had my first ever ET experience. And this is how you and I got talking about this subject, because you posted an article of somebody who had had the same encounter,
Yeah.
the same being that I had had. And at the time, for me, I didn't even realize that this kind of ET even existed. I'd never read anything, heard anything. So it was a bit of a shock to me. I've read all about Pleiadians and, greys and stuff. Okay, that everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
But this particular experience was, yeah, it just blew my mind. And so I did a video about it. I certainly didn't do a video about it at the time, because I didn't really know what to do with the information.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought, I'm lucky enough, and I do think I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by really skeptical people who
Mm-hmm.
question me on absolutely everything, and they do keep me grounded. And I think that's really, really important. I don't like living in echo chambers. I like people who challenge me, who don't nod and agree with everything that I say. And I appreciate that, because I think you can get caught up in the whole world of crazy if you just surround yourself with nodding dogs who just go along with everything.
Of
I think it's
course.
really
Yeah.
healthy to have different people around. So, okay, so my first experience went a bit like this. It was New Year's Eve. We had just entered into 2017, and we had seen the new year in and gone to bed. And I just have to say at this point that we weren't drinking at the time. We don't. I hate New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Never celebrate it. Never go out on New Year's. Can't stand it. I don't like crowds. I don't like drunk people.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really struggle. And I prefer to be at home in my pajamas with a brew, and not concerning myself with partying about the change of time. It just doesn't do anything for me.
I
But
find that relatable.
yeah. Also, I have children, so you know, they're the priority. And again, the idea of getting blind drunk at home when you're in charge of children, especially young children, I absolutely won't do. So yeah, so kind of boring. But we saw, the new year in, happy new year, blah blah blah, off to bed, and that was the end of that. And I'd been asleep a few hours, and I woke suddenly, and I guess I must have been facing my husband in the bed. And instead of the usual way, when you wake up, you're usually a bit blurry eyed, a bit, your vision's a bit off, and you're
Yeah.
not quite there. This was like a sudden, I'm wide awake moment. And I was in that direction. And the first thing that I see when I open my eyes is what looks like a very, very large praying mantis.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just so unbelievably shocked. I didn't know. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I couldn't believe that any of this was, everything was sort of happening all at once. A million thoughts go through your mind. But the main one for me was, oh my God. And I said it out loud, quite loudly. Oh my God. My
Mm-hmm.
husband, who is usually the lightest sleeper in the world, and I explained this in the video, he's a really light sleeper. Anything will wake him up, especially me yelling, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
He instantly, well, I'd probably give him some form of cardiac arrest, but he would have woken up, except he didn't. And everything at that point happened within like split seconds. It was really, really quick. So I
Mm-hmm.
say, oh my God, my head is off the pillow. And this thing looks at me because it was peering over my husband. That was the other thing. It wasn't over my side of the bed, it was over his side of the bed. And it was peering over him in a sort of curious, like its head was moving, like it was observing, it was curious.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened when I said, oh my God, it looked directly at me. We locked eyes and I blacked out. And it was that quick. It was literally up, open eyes. Oh my God, boom, back down. And then when I eventually woke up at usual waking time, again, it wasn't like a slow, like coming around and, oh, good morning, and oh, blah, blah, blah. None of that. It was, I turned to my husband and said, why didn't you wake up? And he went, eh? What? Like, why didn't you wake up when I yelled, oh my God, why didn't you wake up? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you what? I'm like, what were you dreaming about? What were you dreaming? Because I'm like, okay, he must have been in a really deep sleep, must have been having crazy dreams. And he was like, I didn't dream anything. I didn't dream anything. I was just dead asleep. And I'm like, okay. I was just in a complete state of disbelief at this point. And he's like, do you want to explain what the hell you're talking about? You've woken
Yeah.
up. And the first thing you're doing is having a go at me, asking me why I didn't wake up. And I explained it to him. And he's like, okay, are you sure this wasn't a dream? And I'm like, it wasn't a dream. I was wide awake. My head was off the pillow. It was an instant waking up. This is what happened. He was like, whoa. And he said, I was in a really, really, really deep sleep. And then, I mean, there was not much more that we could say about it throughout the day, but I couldn't stop thinking about it and thinking, what the hell was that? What was that?
I find that really unusual, that your husband's usually the really lightest of sleepers, and this specific night is in the deepest of sleeps. And I mean, do you think this thing was positive or negative? Have you got any kind of idea, or did it not? Did you get any vibe from it?
the the only vibe that I got that was really clear was that it was curious, and that I wasn't petrified. I was shocked because, of course, you're going to be shocked. You
Yeah.
wake up and there's a creature, a flipping massive creature, leaning over your husband. Anybody would be shocked.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was my first feeling. It was just shock and I suppose horror, really, because I've never seen anything like that before in my life. What the hell
Mm-hmm.
was it doing in our house? And again, millions of thoughts run through your head, and this is in split seconds. This didn't go on for even so much as 10 seconds. This was split seconds when it all happened, and then I was out. I didn't feel afraid of it,
Mm-hmm.
as in like it felt threatening or anything, but obviously I was like just horrified that it was there.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until a few days later, because at the time my husband was working away and it wasn't the weekend anymore. So he was back at work, and so I was alone, and I woke in the night again in the same way, a sudden I'm wide awake, eyes wide open, and there was another one in the room, and this time it was at the foot of the bed on my side, and it was very different looking to the first one. The first one appeared kind of, and it's such a weird way of putting it. It appeared young.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you can conclude that when you don't know anything about ET.
It
But
makes sense though.
yeah, it appeared young to me. The second one was darker. It had a darker, I don't know if you can call it skin. I mean, is it skin? I mean, what is it? It had a darker colouring. It was more toad-like. So I'd say that the first one had a more fresh, young, frog-like green,
Mm-hmm.
and the second one was a more darker green, dirty brown,
Mm-hmm.
toad-like colouring. And it felt older, and it felt intimidating, and
Mm-hmm.
it felt serious, and I didn't like it. I didn't, and I don't know if it was just that I was alone in the bed this time. Not the first time made a damn bit of difference because it was fantastic. But yeah, I suppose it's from a security standpoint. You know, if someone's there, you feel sort of, I don't know, slightly more secure, I guess.
Of
But
course.
this time, I'm on my own, and there's something there that it just, I felt a bit more threatened. I felt intimidated. I felt like I didn't want this thing to stick around. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like it was observing me in a different way, and I didn't.
So it was also inquisitive, but it was just seemed like it had a darker agenda afoot.
I don't even know if I'd go so far as to say that. Again, I didn't feel like my life was in danger, like I was being threatened, but I did feel like this one came with a more sort of serious reason, if you
Mm-hmm.
like. It's so hard to explain, isn't it, when something weird like that happens that you've never experienced before, and you're just guessing really as
Yeah.
to what the hell their reasoning was, why they were there, and all the rest of it. So again, there was a moment of me staring at it and it staring at me, and then I was asleep again. I'd gone again. And I woke up in the morning and thought, oh my God, you know, how many times is this going to happen this week? It's my new normal. And actually, that was the last time that I had that particular being visit. That was it. It was just two praying mantis beings, and they never came back.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, okay, that was, I guess that was just one of those things. I'll never know why. There was no telepathic communication going on. There was no, I didn't get an instant feeling of why they were there. I only have questions, many, many questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that experience. And I just carried on, you know, with my life, and um doing my groups in my pyramid, doing my weekly readings, doing, you know, different videos for my channel. I certainly didn't discuss that experience at the time. I did much later. Um, because I mean, where do you start with that? What do you say? It's such a strange. I'm no expert. This isn't my lane. I'm not. Well, perhaps more now, but at the time that wasn't my lane. I had no interest in extraterrestrial experiences or anything else. I didn't have a particular strong opinion on it one way or another.
I
So,
think
well,
I was just going to say, I think because the mantises as well, rather than, people have seen images of greys and stuff portrayed for years in the mainstream media and on documentaries and stuff all over the shop. So I think with them being mantises, it seems to attract like ridicule. For example, that guy who I posted about the other day, you know, the comment section below it, I was the only person who posted something serious. Every other person was just out to destroy him and criticize his information. And I was like, well, you know, even the Daily Star had kind of a bit of a nasty, really, headline. And I was like, well, you don't really need to take the mick out of any of his details or how he looks or what he's interested in or anything. So none of this is relevant. It's just to ridicule the information because the information's legit and you don't want people to know that.
Yeah. And I think it's the easy go-to, isn't it? Instant ridicule, you know. I mean, look, I've got a channel that's all about psychic stuff, and I do something. So I'm used to ridicule. Okay, I've had this for a long time. I'm I'm no stranger to ridicule, and I know what people think about this kind of thing. And you're either into it or you're not. And you know, generally people come to my channel because they're into what I do, not because they want to take the piss. But I know when it comes to things like people talking about seeing UFOs or experiences with ETs or anything like that, that the go-to reaction is to take the mickey out of them, to poke fun at them and to put them down, or to try and suggest that there's something going on. So I'm just going to interject at this point and say that I've been really, really lucky. I've not suffered any childhood trauma. Both my parents are together. I had a really lucky, privileged life, I would say. And because there's a lot of there seems to be a link between people who come out and talk about experiences with ETs and being abducted and that kind of thing. There seems to be quite a strong link to trauma or childhood trauma. I haven't had that. I'm really, really lucky that I haven't had that. So I feel like I need to put that in there because, again, when people are talking about people who claim to have experiences, if they dig enough, they'll find that there's usually some form of trauma there in their past life, or you know, broken family or whatever. I don't have any of that. So it was quite a few months after that I had more experiences of waking up and finding beings in my room in the night, and waking up in the same sudden way. I was doing a lot of astral traveling in my sleep, and I always know when I'm astral traveling because I bump back into my body very suddenly, which causes me to wake up. And I'd had such an experience, and suddenly woke to find like a lion-headed being on the side of my bed that my husband would usually sleep at, but he was working away. And that was a very strange experience. Again, I didn't feel like I was afraid. It was like, oh, well, who are you? What are you doing here? And this thing, as soon as it was aware that I was awake and I was sitting up and my head was off my pillow, it shot off the bed and dematerialized very quickly. But what was interesting about that was that being didn't come alone, because where this lion-headed being had shot off to was standing another being who was very short in height, maybe like almost like a flesh-colored skin, almost human-ish looking, almost grey, like your classic grey alien looking, so slightly enlarged head to body size. And it looked at me and gave me almost like a respectful nod, slow nod, and then dematerialized, just as the other being had gone in that direction. And I'm like, what is going on? It's like, here we go again, but you're not praying mantises. What was that? And so again, I'm like, who can I tell? Because this sounds so demented, so like
Fascinating.
yeah, it doesn't sound in any way believable, and it just sounds so weird. So obviously I told my husband everything, told him, and he was really fascinated. I didn't really talk about it with anyone else other than going into maybe chat groups with people who have had experiences. I found when I started reaching out to it, because I first started reaching out after my first experience, because I wanted to know if anyone else had seen these flipping giant praying mantises. Um, and I can't possibly be the only one. Maybe I am. And, turns out I'm not that special. That's what I woke up to one at the foot of my bed, and it was really shocking. And I was like, oh, thank God I'm not on my own here. This is great. And in my search for, because that for me it was a bit of a quest, who's had this experience, who's had that experience, I started to find that I was joining groups of people who had different experiences. And it was around that time, it may have even been late 2016, I don't know that it was actually, it must have been 2017, that I discovered a YouTube channel, and it was called Wolf Spirit Radio. I don't know if you've heard of Wolf Spirit Radio.
No, I've not.
Ran by a guy called JP, and at the time he used to have this man come on his show. I think it was every other Sunday or third Sunday in the month, and this man was called Simon Parks.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first knowledge of this person. And I think somebody in one of these groups had said, you need to talk to Simon Parks, or you need to listen to Simon Parks's show, because he claims that he's had experiences with mantis beings. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's how I discovered Simon Parks. And
Right.
he wasn't on Wolf Spirit Radio for much longer after I discovered him, because I seem to remember him talking about this lady who he'd claimed that she was saying things about him, accusing him of being a certain thing, which I won't say on here.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had made claims that she had been raided by the police, and they'd found something in her home that she was intending to distribute. I'm being so careful about how I word this.
I know what you're nodding at, kind of. Anyway, so.
You know the story now, anyway. So yeah. So I thought, okay, this is a drama that I wasn't prepared for. This is not what I came for.
Mm-hmm.
And so I listened to it, and then I think it was the following time when he was supposed to be on the show, JP had released a statement which he put up on the screen, and it was basically saying, I'm not going to be having Simon Parks on my show anymore. A lot has come to light, and people have come forward and talked about very serious matters, and I'm not going to be following his work anymore. I suggest you do the same. I'm like, oh. So that was the end of that. And then I think then he set up his own YouTube channel for connecting consciousness, and then it sort of grew from there. And I dipped in and out. I didn't really know too much about the drama with this lady, where it started or anything else, but I wasn't really there for that. I was there to learn about stuff. And what I found actually when I was listening to him, he didn't talk so much about these mantis beings. More, he seemed to be a bit obsessed with reptilian stuff, and sort of self-claimed expert on all things reptilian and rituals to do with reptilians and symbolism to do with reptilians. He talked about the Illuminati a lot and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not really helping me, because that's not an experience I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it was not, I wasn't religiously listening to his show. I dipped in and out, and just sort of carried on, with my experiences. And I've had a few other experiences, waking up things in my room during 2017. and then not much after that. And it wasn't until I was talking to you about this that I connected a few dots. I thought, I wonder if that is what it was all about. And when I think of the timing of when I put my pyramid up in my house, it kind of coincides with all of these sudden visitations and waking up and finding these beings in my room. And because it wasn't the same being, they were all different. I can't help but think, and I can't prove it, obviously, but it's a working theory now, that perhaps it was something to do with me putting that copper pyramid up that was almost like a beacon. Maybe I'm flipping accidentally called them all to my house by putting this. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it had nothing to do with that. I don't know. But it just seems a bit interesting, the timing, that I get this copper meditation pyramid and start getting really creative, writing all of these guided meditations and running my group in there. That suddenly I get all these visits, and then by the end of 2017, we bought our first house, so we put our notice in, and we're getting ready to move. So the pyramid was taken down and blah 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 until we moved here. And interestingly, when the pyramid was taken down and we were starting to pack up our house to move, I didn't get any more experiences. I didn't get any more visitations. Nothing. It was crickets. Nothing happened. When we moved here and I finally set up this room, it took quite a while. I had a really interesting meditation experience where I felt like I had connected in with ETs, but it wasn't a visitation. There was nothing. I've not had anything like that since we moved here. And now, to be fair, the pyramid, I'm in my workroom at the moment where my pyramid usually is. It's taken down because of making certain videos for my other channel. So I need the space. So it has been taken down for just temporarily while I do that. But I think it's really interesting that I had those experiences around about the time that I was working with my pyramid. It just seems a bit strange. And the other thing to note, because obviously I expect a lot of skeptical people to be like, oh, okay, I think she's just been having vivid dreams, to be honest, and she just woke up. It was a dream within a dream within a dream, or whatever. I have never sort of milked this story for all it's worth. And you find a lot of people who have had these experiences tend to over egg it and talk about it and dine out on it. And I haven't. I made those videos for my channel. I think I did 1 or 2 interviews with Dan at Talk is Cheap.
Sure.
About my experiences, and obviously I'm talking to you. But from my standpoint, there was nothing else to talk about because I didn't have any more visitations after that. I didn't have any more experiences. I haven't seen, any more ETs since then. I haven't woken up to anything strange standing in the room since then. But maybe once when we were here, which was a bit of an odd experience. And I don't know what the hell that was, but I have had paranormal experiences my whole life. It's again, me waking up and finding things there isn't necessarily new to me, but me waking up and finding beings that don't look human was new to me. So, it's nothing I can substantiate with any evidence whatsoever. And when people say, why didn't you? Because the other thing is, because I'm surrounded by very cynical people, the person who edits my videos, the first thing he said to me was, why don't you get your camera? Why don't you just get your camera? Your phone's right next to you. Why don't you just get your camera? Take a picture. Not what goes through your mind. when something that isn't human is
Sure.
peering over your husband in the middle of the night, you don't go, hang on a minute, just get my camera. You don't do it.
Say cheese.
It doesn't enter your brain to even consider turning your eyes, even blinking. You don't want to blink because there's something that's not human standing right there. Why would you even want to blink? You don't know what that's going to do. You don't know what their reasoning for being there is. So
Yeah. It could have been a threat for all you know. You know, you could have been under attack. Your husband could have been under attack.
yeah, and all I managed was, oh my God, which is not the best defense, to be fair. I don't think it was that much good, but it certainly it made the situation end very quickly. And yeah, but again, it's not something that I want to keep talking about over, because it's not like some experiences have regular experiences with ETs, and they'll talk about their regular experiences, but I can't ever claim that I have regular experiences with ETs, because I don't. I've had experiences and they haven't repeated themselves. So yeah, so that's probably why it took me a while to talk about it on camera, and then to set up a separate playlist on my channel for anything UFO, ET discussions or anything like that. I thought we'll put that in its very own section, because I'm not, I cannot sit there and say that I'm some kind of ET experiencer, expert, or anything else. I certainly wouldn't go to a conference and stand up and start lecturing people about different ETs. I wouldn't have the audacity to do that like Simon Parkes seems to. And again, that'll probably bring me round to why I set up, why we know each other, and why I set up a new YouTube channel, Intel Lady, which is absolutely nothing like Lightworker Lady, and it's almost the polar opposite of Lightworker Lady. And I did it for a very good reason, because I noticed, in particular last year, a lot of spiritual channels, spiritual people channeling, people reading cards, started getting very political, talking about, you know, Trump as if he was a god emperor and a savior, and he was going to save the world. I thought, this is a bit weird. And then stumbled across Simon Parkes, who, excuse me, who was, I almost sounded like Simon Parkes then. My intel tells me. Anyway, he was doing the same thing. What is going on? And I was kind of fascinated. So I silently observed, after, you know, people that I've sort of admired and looked up to are talking about Trump and referring to him as a white hat and all of this code and everything else. And then that letter of the alphabet got brought into it, and everyone jumped on this bandwagon, especially, and it just surprised me how many so-called spiritual people were doing this and jumping in on this thing. And I thought, I think there's a bit of the three C's going on here: the clicks, the clout, and the cash. And I like that, and it really bothered me. And I didn't like all the spiritual buzzwords that were being thrown around, and this quantum this and quantum that, and talk of med beds and special kind of healing, extraterrestrial joining up with ETs to make healing devices, and I'm like, oh, okay. And the other thing that bothered me about Simon Parkes was he went from being an expert in ETs and reptilians and talking, but he crisscrossed it, because he would also talk about the jinn, which is very much a Islamic thing, isn't it? And he was crossing all over the place, talking about different things. And I'm like, okay, you're throwing everything into the mix. And then claiming that certain symbols were, and I hate this word, it annoys me, satanic. Everything's bloody satanic, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there seems to be a lot of brainwashing going on. And I thought, where are you going with this? Well, I didn't know anything about his backstory. I didn't know he'd done a documentary for Channel 4 in 2013. And I didn't know that right until, when did I find out about that? It must have been this year, very early on this year, or maybe late last year, that he'd done this documentary. And that's how he connected to this Marie lady that he was making outrageous claims about and got thrown off Wolf Spirit for talking about. So then I started connecting all of these dots about Simon Parkes, and I thought, hang on a minute. From what I've listened to over the years of him on his YouTube channel, and from what he's saying in this documentary to what he's saying right now, none of this adds up at all. Because he claimed that he was claiming to, especially to his American fans who fawn all over him, and I don't know why. It must be the flipping British accent. I wish people would get over it.
Yeah, I think it's magic, man. It's magic. We was discussing it the other day on a post. It's just a form of magic. They're all brainwashed. This is what it is, and it's so hard for them to admit that they've been deceived. And that's what the sad part is.
It is, and I think, but that's the thing, is it not a rite of passage in your life to be deceived? Not one of life's incredibly important lessons, to be hoodwinked and deceived and conned by people. The point of it is that you are to learn from it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Important life lessons. Everyone's been bloody deceived. It's normal. It's a part of life. But to go along with it and to keep hoping that you're wrong, maybe I'm not being deceived, maybe they are right. That's hanging on to that hope, isn't it? And it's so wrong.
Yep.
So what I found, sorry, I will let you speak in a minute. Two Northerners. There's going to be a I'm really annoyed because I started hearing him talking to a lot of people about how his mum worked for MI5 and blah blah. There was all of that talk, and then a friend of mine showed me the Channel 4 documentary, the Confessions of an Alien Abductee. I don't know if you've seen it or seen clips.
I've seen clips, but I need to watch the entire thing.
Yeah, I'd watch it all the way through. It's quite interesting. And I do believe Marie, actually. The rest of them, not so much. Especially the lady with the beehive. I can't get over her. You need to watch it, basically. So I watched this and I'm like, hang on a minute. He's done a documentary with Channel 4, and there was a section in it where they talk about his childhood and his mother. And two things to talk about there. He never knew his father, and it said, he was shown photos of him and his mom together as a child. He never knew his father. Now, if that was incorrect, before it came out, that would have had to have been corrected. So that's one thing that's really important. He never knew his father. And the other thing was that his mother was an alcoholic. And he talks about how his mother was an alcoholic, how he'd only ever eaten one meal with her. They led very separate lives. I think that's really sad. That's really, really sad. Absolutely no mention on a Channel 4 documentary that his mother worked for MI5. I mean, you would think that was quite an important thing to bring up when you're making a documentary like that. That's interesting information. Why would you hold that back? That didn't make any sense. That was a huge, huge red flag there. And couldn't understand why people weren't pulling pulling him up on that. Like, hang on a minute, this was a national TV channel. This is a big TV channel, Channel 4 in the UK. You know, millions of people watch. And you didn't think it was important to mention that your mum worked for MI5 and that your grandfather, because he also claims his grandfather worked for MI6 and the CIA. It's all lies. It's all complete fantasy. It's fantasy. And this is what annoys me about these other people that think they're digging up stuff on Simon Parkes and that he's some kind of 3-letter agency, informant, shill, whatever. He isn't. He is simply a fantasist who has conned people for years. And so a friend of mine who used to have a YouTube channel made a video about him, and he showed evidence of him lying at an ET conference. And it was a simple way of working it out. It was a Google reverse image search on a picture of what he claimed was a severed reptilian head that was found in I think an African village or something. And there was pictures of people holding up this head. If you do a reverse image search on that, it is actually from an art installation called Monsters, I think, where they put these in various places and made it look like, you know, people with monsters. But he's used that in his and said, I have, you know, it's been confirmed by my insiders, you know, my higher ups or whatever, that this is in fact a severed head of a reptilian. And it's like, oh, okay. So he caught red-handed with that. And he was also flogging his 5G USB stick thing as well at the time. So my friend had made this video calling him out for it. And obviously the flying monkeys arrived. And then the next thing he knew, he received an email. It was at the time when you could email on YouTube. I don't think you can anymore, or message on YouTube. And it was from Simon Parkes' wife. And when I talk about Simon Parkes, I get a frog in my throat. Hang on, excuse me. My inside. And it was from he'd used his wife's YouTube to send a message to my friend to say, we want you to remove this video, blah, blah, blah. What you're saying, you know, is defamation, yada, yada. My lawyers would like to speak with you. Where do you live? Presumably you're in Wales, because Detective Parkes deduced that with my friend having a strong Welsh accent, that he must, of course, live in Wales. Well, if he'd asked his MI5 friends, they would have discovered that, in fact, he doesn't live in the country. So that put the kibosh on that. My friend obviously replied, was very honest, and said, no, I'm not in Wales. I actually live in the Netherlands, blah, blah, blah. I said, that shouldn't be a problem. My lawyers will have no problem coming out to the Netherlands to meet you. But just total bluff, nonsense, threatening him because he wanted to get rid of that video. He wanted that video to go away because it's going to ruin his grift. And unfortunately, my friend not only took the video down because he was getting a lot of the Parkes fan club flying in and defending him and being awful and cruel to him. He took the video down, and eventually he completely took his whole channel down, which was really sad because his channel was great, and you know, he had a lot of interesting insights into things. And that's what they do. If they think that the grift is up, then they'll make sure they send their fan club in to harass you as much as possible and threaten you with fake lawsuits that wouldn't get. I mean, there was nothing to sue. The man is standing up and telling lies. It was proven that he was. What are you suing for? Exactly what are you suing for? You know, these USB sticks were tested by people and taken apart and proven to be just USB sticks. There's nothing that's going to